This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to AFLAC for supporting I Love Black People Radio.
And welcome to another edition of I Love Black People. And thank you for joining us and continue to be with us on this wonderful, incredible adventure that we've been on. And we couldn't do it without you. It's one of those facts that it really does take all of us. And we're talking about loving and being there for each other. This is probably the pinnacle of what it means to be together. And so I Love Black People, exists off the feedback that you've been offering and guidance, and definitely appreciate everyone who's sends your email info at iloveblackpeople.com, folks who come to our website. We're and I say website, we're on the cusp of go ahead and updating that website. We want to make sure that you can use the website to really stay up to date with what we're doing on the show, as well as download that app. We're about to do our official launch. We initially had said that we were going to have official launch, and we've now moved it to November. And so keep your eyes on that and make sure that you're, ready to rock and roll with us, because we got so again, I think it's important that we keep our, momentum and keep what we're doing on a positive side. There's a lot of things happening, and this is the first, the last quarter, the first of the last quarter of the year. Where did it go? Where did it go? I guess governments, at least the federal government of the United States, this would be the first quarter in that year. And in the United States, there's a shutdown. And it doesn't mean the United States doesn't have any money. It just means that the principals who govern our branches of government have not agreed to how money should be spent. And until they agree, uh, there's no budget allotted for the continuation of services. And on principle, that's really problematic. And they had all year, so it's not like this just popped up as a thing to do. But of course, we know this is a part of the politics that we're engaged in. And on one side, you have the people who make us think there's a conservative agenda, and then on the other side, you got people who think that try to make us think it's a liberal agenda, when really both parties are serving the same agenda. And again, they call it in South Africa state capture. And what we see now, we know that as much pain and suffering that happens throughout the world, and including the United States, that these decisions aren't being made to address that pain and suffering. Um, it's really clear. We just had the Congressional Black Caucus. We've just, seen a whole first, 10 months of the new administration, with the old administration spending 4 years. And we're clear that the last president really wasn't in control. And to be candid, I think one of the things that you realize is that many, if not most of these presidents, really weren't the ones that were calling the shots. And I think now things are even more evident. Um, we've had, so much violence taking place, that you ask yourself what American citizen is actually pushing this agenda of just, kill everybody. And it's been happening, I think, as a Gen Xer, when it was happening in communities that were vilified, like the ones that we come from, it was somehow justified. But now, no, and that, as it always has been, it's not just been in our community, the focus, but literally the use of poor and disenfranchised people to feed a machine has been consistent. They said the state with the most folks who lost their lives, I believe, in the Vietnam War. Now, if you had lived in Vietnam, they called it the U.S. War. Um, were from West Virginia, and these are very poor, it's coal mining and things of that nature there. And again, this system has been consistent, being here for 400 years of this settler colonial experiment. It's literally been something that we, as we kind of analyze it, I think we've tried to change our opinion, but the facts have been quite consistent. So, entering this last quarter, I'd say that we got to keep the resistance alive, keep, loving each other and making sure that we uplift. I think we should disrupt the hate that we see in the world with love. We don't fight fire, we fight fire with water. And I think the water that we have is the truth, the kindness, the consideration, our humanity. And I think, as if we look at the world around us, it was created by something so amazing. So we know that this part of it can't be in line with what what is meant for us to do, the calling that we all have. And so I think we should use this time to actually come together closer, not spend time away. We, of course, all differ in our opinions and have disagreements. But I think one of the things that I'm, circumspectively learning is just, we don't have to be disagreeable. Um, my grandmama said, kill them with kindness. And then she wasn't talking about killing anybody. She was really saying that, you know, that's the energy you want to be, that's the vibration you want to be on. And we need to be out looking out for each other. One of the things I've also seen is so many of our peers and counterpart, as we've consistently known, people are going through things. You don't know what people are going through based on their outwardly looking selves. They call it this, people send their um they send their representative, and you oftentimes aren't dealing with the true source or pain uh, or the trauma that they're dealing with. And so people put the mask on. So again, just know there's many of us who have the mask, and we need to be supportive in spite of the fact that we oftentimes feel somewhat ashamed of the pain we're going through, the economy, relationships. Just aspirations. So many of us have spent a life doing what we were told would make us successful, and many of us may not be where we want to be or what we think we should be. I do think we should stay encouraged. We come from people who've been through so much. We've come from a people who've done so much. So much is still required from us. So again, when you look around at this world, and I tell people it's not black supremacy, it's black primacy. We are the first civilized people. So, when you look around at the languages and the sciences and the relationships of civilization, you have to know that couldn't have started off with a bunch of fighting and wars. We would still be backwards and upside down if it hadn't been from a foundation of mutual, beneficial engagements where people would develop populations, develop norms that were conducive to us to continue to be enlightened and grow and be educated. And that's the part that I think we need to uh, connect to, not the violence. The violence is unsustainable. I often talk about uh, how our folks from I Love Black People, our members, reached out and was talking about what was going on in Ukraine. And this was about what, 2022, when the Russians invaded Ukraine. They in Russia, I want to say it was like February 24th ish. And I was on the ground by March 7th. We had our, members, and this is when we were really trying to move our app from a website to the app and tried to make sure people could get access. When our brothers and sisters were fleeing Ukraine, they were going through a lot of racism. The Ukraine government at the time was, and the folks working and on behalf of the government, many of them were just very racist. They were beating and abusing black nationals, African nationals leaving, trying to escape the war and the mistreatment and how they were being engaged was horrific. So what I saw though was that violence, and what we met that violence with was support of our members and support of the folks who really, woke up one day and was in the middle of a war zone, and they had came to the country to seek education, many of them, and that country did not respect their, humanity in times of crisis. So we have to respect our humanity in times of times of crisis, and our respect for our humanity manifested in the development of our app, the I Love Black People Safe Places app, that really focuses on making sure that we have a global safety net. That no matter where our members, where our people go, that they will be treated with dignity and respect and protect them from the harms and humiliations of racism and Afrophobia. And we define Afrophobia as the irrational, like out of your mind, crazy, irrational fear or hatred of people perceived to be of African descent. Now, we say proceed because they don't ask us. A racist is not going to ask you to see your DNA test, or somebody who's trying to harm you is not going to first ask you where were you born exactly. But this is one of the things, or where your mama from. But these are things that we say are perceived because, again, we know race is a construct. It's not scientifically based. It's a social construct. It's not biologically based. So when we talk about it, we know that these things are in the minds of crazy people, which create crazy systems. And so, as much as race is not real, racism is, and there's real dire consequences. And there's manipulations that are done to, promote that. And we have to be mindful of it. And one of the things that we try to make sure happens, like again, as you've seen this year, as we, go into the last quarter of it, Washington, D.C., one of the things we always talk about is having an agenda. And, one of the agendas that I've definitely made sure we made highlighted was DC statehood, and making sure that DC had full representation, that the members, the citizens with taxpayer dollars coming out of their pockets, that they have a say so in what happens in the federal government, and make sure they have a say so what happens with their tax dollars. Now, this is an agenda we had, in the previous administration, and we still didn't get what we needed. And I tell people, as much as we talk about this, we got to be clear that when no matter who's elected, the people you like or don't like, they still are held accountable, and we got to hold ourselves accountable. And we can't have Republicans or Democrats or anyone else, because there's always people talking about they want to start a party. Like, I think we've done enough partying. I think one of the things that we do, we might party too much. We need to be uh, very clear and focused on an agenda, making sure that no matter who's elected, we hold and know how to hold people accountable to our agenda. And what we're seeing now, and I think it's very unfortunate, we have an courageous, amazing, dynamic mayor of Washington, D.C., who's literally doing everything to keep the 40,000 employees employed, make sure the services for the for over 700,000 citizens going, and she's been under attack by some of the most, white supremacist attacks that any any mayor in the country. And I say white supremacist attack because she doesn't get just attacks and misogynistic attacks. She doesn't just get attacked from the conservative so-called people, the right wing people. She gets attacked by the left wing white supremacists. I think we need to have a real honest conversation about how, as a community, that we've been oftentimes manipulated by any sides of these parties. And at the end of the day, we don't receive the agendas that we've been fighting for. Reparations, DC statehood. These are things where, with a city with disproportionate amount of black folks, we've been told with DC statehood that we had to wait. This is by the Democrats. This is not the. This is we've had too many administrations where the Democrats control both houses as well as the White House, and still didn't make sure we had at least full representation in Congress. You know, we have Sister Norton, who's been there quite some time, and so people get to talk about how long. I will just say this: back in the day, you know, when many of us were organizing and discussing these politics on the national level, and that we were told that, you know, don't try to unseat the Congressional Black Caucus members because they've been there so long, because there was a thing called seniority, and that because of that seniority, they will have positions of power in the committees and subcommittees with the control of the House being the Dems. Now, the problem with that, now I think it sounded rational to us at the time, but now we look back on the track record, the members of the CBC and all the other Dems were more interested in serving the lobbyists and the folks that have put money in their pocket. And again, that's when we say state capture. And what does that do? It gives you a face of things. It gives you the trappings of some behavior, but it doesn't give you the results. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with people who say great things and talk about great things, or even debate, filibuster great things, but it's in the results. Like, you know, all the work you do at your job, it doesn't matter how nice you are and how many words, you're going to be graded on your results. And if we look at the results for issues that are specifically, particularly germane to our communities, it's been dismal. We've got no reparations. We've got no DC statehood. We've stopped no trafficking of drugs. There's been no stoppage of trafficking of illegal weapons. Like, there's not even, like, they've done nothing but give us very small incremental suggested laws that don't even get enforced. And as a community of a constituency, we've over indexed more into the one party, Democratic Party, more than anyone. So if you look at this in a rational way, the people who've literally made it so that one party could be in office, they should, in a real way, have those agenda items fully, with the results to pull or the show for it, been addressed tangibly, not this is substantively, not just, you know, again, a surface or superficially. And this does not happen. But the conversations have been always, you know, the rhetoric of it. And I would say even with the so-called, you know, the right side or so-called Republicans, they do the same thing oftentimes with poor white folks, where they literally, you know, pander, but then all the rules that get changed benefit the same people that, again, ultimately are funding both sides. And what they say, they call it, they butter the bread on both sides. You know, a capitalist in that sense is never going to let a, you know, a general election determine the outcome of their companies. So be it the, you know, military industrial complex, be it the tech industrial complex, be it the financial industrial complex, or even the, I mean, the NGO industrial complex. You know, these things are controlled by the same people. You know, corporate media, it's corporate. I mean, it's a corporation. That means it's an industry. So the same people who are controlling these things, even when we start talking about DC government and what's going on in DC related to the attack on our sovereignty. The attack on our sovereignty has been there, and it's not been defended but by local government, like people like Mayor Mira Bowser, like people like Kenya McDuffie, people like Brianne Nadeau. I love some Brianne Nadeau. She's decided she's stopped. That's a city council person in Washington, D.C. She's stepping down. And for you who are outside of it, this might seem like minutia, but the part of it that I'm saying, all these people I just said were Democrats, and yet the Democratic Party is allowing DC to be attacked and not using every resource to stand up for it. And I think, again, this is my personal opinion. I don't want this to somehow be the opinion of someone else. I think there's some things that are going on that these corporate Dems, these Democrats are saying, well, the worse things get, the better we'll get for a midterm turnout. And they're looking at it with the politics, the political calculations of politics, that if we allow the suffering to stay where it is, then people will come out and vote for us in the midterm. I pray people come out and vote for new Dems or new politicians. I don't care what side, because if that's a strategy, that's just wicked. To say that people must endure because you're trying to get personal gain in the future is pretty sick. It's pretty savage. And with the consequences of that are people like Mayor Mira Bowser are literally fighting for the lives of our communities and not receiving all the full weight of the Democratic Party to ensure that we're protected. And then you have these liberal white supremacists and misogynists who are literally attacking her for not doing what they want. And then you got the conservative white supremacist sexist folks attacking her for not doing what they want her to do. So it's one of those things that we have to be clear with the agenda and not get caught up with all this partying. We're just partying too much. And again, the partying got to stop, y'all. We've been partying up, and we are where we are because of the resistance and resilience of our people, not because of a political party. It's in spite of the political party system. The it's they call it the illusion of inclusion. At the end of the day, the U.S. has been probably a one party system for quite some time, and the illusion of choice is what keeps us, on this rat race. But I think, again, the people who are doing that are on the wrong side of history. They're on the wrong side of nature, on the wrong side of God. This amount of brutality and violence that's been propagated and elevated and even sometimes glorified is unsustainable. Whatever God you pray to, this is definitely way, way beyond anything that someone could pray about and be like, this makes sense. And that's not just talking about settler colonial experiments like this. This is literally, we know from, what right and wrong is. Now, I tell people you can't pray for it, like lying and cheating and stealing. I don't know no prayer that's included lying, cheating, and stealing. So we need to be mindful that the systems that we see around us may seem insurmountable. They may even seem powerful, but the systems around us did not create this world, didn't create us. So this system is definitely not the strongest power here. Literally, this system is not only fragile, but it's probably futile. Like it literally can't last. It's unsustainable, as I said. So we must stay encouraged. I tell people just don't surrender. You might have to change your tactics, even retreat. I've been in this situation when I've been bankrupt or when I've lost, loved ones and things that have happened. You sometimes have to regroup, but that's not surrender. Sometimes your supply lines are running low. Sometimes you have some issues with morale. You have to reorganize and you have to take in account what's going on to make that happen. But don't surrender. And again, when you were dealing with a system that's really on the wrong side of everything, that makes sense. That's is to the point of very illogical. You have to, if someone says this stuff is, the world's coming to an end, I would just say, some things and many things have come and gone, even in our lifetime. If you're a Gen Xer, you saw the fall of the Soviet Union. If you've lived within the last 100 years, the Ottoman Empire, the fall of that, you've really seen the changes throughout the world that has consistently, changed. Names of countries, the borders of countries. And again, I will say that these borders are artificial and they are political constructs that are problematic. But when I'm saying that is that we really know that there's something better, and we are that something that's better. And if we continue and never surrender, we'll see this. We'll see this through. And we're going to be happy that we did. So that being said, just wanted to say thank you again, everyone. Make sure you go to info at iloveblackpeople.com. We're going to be launching our app officially in November. Make sure you check that out. Everybody who came to the Black Blockchain Summit, shout out. Thank you for doing that. And as I always leave us with, I am because we are. And thank you so much.
This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM, Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to AFLAC for supporting I Love Black People Radio.